Ahead and start the recording. All right. Hello, my name is Greg Cooper. I'm the manager of employment connections here at Fox Valley Technical College. Welcome to this week's session of Global Job Seekers Network. Today, we are fortunate enough to be here with Vanessa from Oshkosh Corporation. Before we get started and let her get a chance to introduce herself, we're going to go over some housekeeping tips. For those of you who haven't been here before, if you can please keep your mics muted and your cameras off until the question and answer portion of the interview. It just gives us, the screen time and allows the recording to be either of me or Vanessa, who's joining us today. Also, there will be a few different times in here where we're going to ask if you have any questions. If you would like to ask a question during the middle of the interview, please type it in the chat function, or you can raise your hand using the hand gesture at the bottom of the screen. When we get to a strategic break, I will look at the chat or look at the hand raised and call on you. And at that point, you can either unmute your microphone or turn your camera and ask a question. There will be time for questions about 10 minutes or so at the end. If you are watching the recording of on one of our social media channels, please feel free to email your questions to employmentconnections@fbtc.edu, and we will either ask Vanessa those questions, or if we can answer those questions, we will answer them. So without further ado, Vanessa, if you can introduce yourself, your job, and just a little bit about your background.
Hi, yeah. Hi, my name is Vanessa Gonzalez. I am the Senior Talent Acquisition Specialist with Oshkosh Corporation, and I support engineering for the enterprise of Oshkosh. A little bit about my background. I come from the Bay Area, so San Jose, California, and I've worked for some tech conglomerates that you might have heard of, such as Apple, eBay, and NVIDIA. I relocated to Wisconsin around 3.5 years ago, and started working for Oshkosh 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So if kind of maybe going a little bit more depth of Oshkosh, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us already know what Oshkosh Corporation does, but if you can go into depth a little bit about kind of what they do, the background of the company.
Yeah, so Oshkosh Corporation is a specialty vehicle company. We make specialty vehicles for the fire, emergency, as well as military, for access. So we have municipalities as well. So the way that our company is broken out is into business units or segments. And so that's fire and emergency, and that's our Oshkosh Airport products, as well as Pierce Manufacturing, and they do fire apparatuses. And then we have our defense Oshkosh, and they do the defense vehicles for the military. And then we have access, so JLG, Jordan, and then they do telehandlers, boom lifts, scissor lifts. And then we also have our municipalities or our commercial line. So those are refuse vehicles, as well as concrete placement, batch plants, mechanic trucks, things like that. And so Oshkosh Corporation is a specialty vehicle company, but what really sets Oshkosh apart from other organizations is that we run as one. And it's really a people first organization. And so you have a lot of development opportunities within the organization. We have frequent meaningful conversations. So it's definitely a different type of atmosphere. It's definitely people first. Oshkosh Corporation prides itself on our people, because our CEO believes that if you treat your people well, they're going to do great work, which in turn makes a great product.
Awesome. And it's great to see a company that's that large, again, like have a people first culture that they are representing. It's how with all of these different lines in these different areas, what type of positions come up with Oshkosh? What type of positions can our students or community members get hired for?
Yeah, so we have everything. So whether it's operations, so like from the manufacturing side, so if you're going into planning, purchasing, manufacturing, assembly, paint, right? Or you have the SG&A, so more of the finance, administrative, marketing, talent acquisition, HR, and then the technical roles, obviously, with engineering. So from your guys' school, we do take a lot of designers. We get a lot of designers from Fox Valley Tech. So, drafter interns, drafters, industrial designers, as well as like welders. And so we have a facet of different types of roles that we hire for at Oshkosh. And it just really depends on the platform or the product line. But every, like I said, business runs as one. And so when we needed admin at Pierce, it would be such as like an admin at Oshkosh.
Mhm. Awesome. So, what does the typical hiring process look like for someone that's applying for a job with Oshkosh?
So the typical hiring process is that we will post a position on our company website and you'll apply for the position. Within 24 to 48 hours, roughly, a talent acquisition specialist will go ahead and review your resume. What we want to see on your resume is relative work experience or what you are responsible for. We understand that entering into the workforce, you may not have a ton of experience, and that's fine. But if you have experience in leadership qualities, or if you have experience in managing something along the lines of some type of documentation or process, you would want to put that in your resume. So what happens is a talent acquisition specialist will review your resume, look at your qualifications, so your degree requirements, if there's a degree requirement, your relative work experience, as well as school projects that you've done and what your role within those school projects have been, and then hobbies or groups that you were a part of, and then your skill set. And so your skill set, one thing that I have noticed from an engineering standpoint is a lot of people will just list different types of programs and they won't say if they're proficient. So I would recommend also putting that into your resume if you're proficient in other things. Once the recruiter reviews your resume and says that, okay, this person does look qualified on paper, we go ahead and we submit your resume to the hiring manager. Now, the hiring manager, the reason we do that, especially for the technical roles, is that because they may have more background or more knowledge around organizations that you're coming from, or they may know a little bit more technical depth into what you wrote on your resume. And so we ask for them to review it. And they'll go ahead and let us know if they want us to do a phone screen. The next step would be a recruiter phone screen. That's where we talk to you about the position, make sure you are genuinely interested in the role, you are able to do the work. We go through your own work experience and then compensation requirements. From that point, we then send that feedback to the hiring manager, and the hiring manager will say if they want to do a phone interview or not. And then if they do want to do a phone interview, we'll go ahead and schedule you for a phone interview. And prior to COVID times, after the phone interview, you would likely come to an on-site interview. At the on-site interview, you would meet with cross-functional members of that team, just to get a good feel of the role and understand the position, as well as them to understand how you would fit into that role and the team dynamic. And then now, because of COVID, we're doing virtual interviews. So you're still meeting people, you're just not coming on site. So typically when you came on site, if it was a technical role, you would get a tour of the facility as well. However, right now, due to COVID, we're only doing virtual interviews. And so it's a little hard to get a tour going. But yeah, so we're pivoting to that. And then, so once that interview process wraps up, the recruiter or talent acquisition specialist has an evaluation call with the hiring manager and the interview team. Essentially, what we do during that is we debrief your interview and we discuss next steps. And next steps could be to pursue other candidates, or it could be to go ahead and move to offer. And then if it's an offer, we look at a couple of things. So we look at what you requested. We also look at internal equity. We look at the market, because the market does drive a lot of our decisions, as well as internal equity. And then that is how your offer is kind of curated for you. It also has benefits. And so once that is all approved, then as a talent acquisition specialist, I would go ahead and extend it to the candidate. And the candidate would get all the information around benefits, the offer, understand their PTO, ask any questions that they might have. So the process, I've seen it take as little as 2.5 weeks and as long as 4 months. So it just really depends. And I think that depends on the position and the hiring team. especially sometimes when the role is a pretty high level technical role. It might be hard to get the same people in the room on a schedule. And then also with interviewing other candidates, it's based on their availability. So you may have interviewed on Monday, right? But we don't have anybody interview. We have the next person interviewing, let's say next Tuesday. So that's already like a week and a half until you're going to hear anything, simply because of the debriefing. So we would debrief after yours, then we would debrief after that one, but that would be after Tuesday. So just thinking about that from a standpoint of, I guess, patience is more of the best way to put it, is you just want to be patient, understand the process, and understand it can take time or it could be really fast. There is no rhyme or reason as to why. It's just in constant communication.
Yeah, I completely understand, especially working with a larger, company like you are. You probably have, so many, qualified candidates that are applying to one position that it becomes difficult to again sort through them and then move through this process that has only been further, extended by the onset of the pandemic. Um, Now, you guys talked a lot about the recruiting process. Now, has your role or has your partner's roles changed? Did they have a work from home aspect prior to the pandemic, or is this new?
No, so the great thing about talent acquisition is you can really do it anywhere as long as you have access to a computer and a phone and internet. So the flexibility is definitely there in the role that I am in. A good example is I live in Arizona and I work for Oshkosh Corporation, and that personal factor of getting to know people via video. So yeah, we are able to work remotely. That's another great thing about Oshkosh is they do believe in work-life balance. And so you're able to really build that into your life.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, and I mean that's great. And another follow up here, so again, with a process that could take anywhere from 2 weeks up to, I forgot what you said, 4 weeks or months long, would you request for a job seeker? I know so many job seekers ask me, well, they haven't called me in a week. Do I need to call? Do I need to send an email? And I always, just from my time, I always go back to after a certain period of time, I'll say, hey, it's okay to follow up. But what would you say? Do you think it's okay for people to follow up, or should they just wait again and be patient, like you said?
Right. So there's a couple things. So if you're in the interview process and you phone screen with the recruiter and they don't follow up with you, follow up in like a week. I would say max. Like just you could reach out to them in 3 or 4 days. Honestly, we should be able to give you a response pretty quickly. But if you're applying for a role and you haven't heard anything back, you can just keep on going in and checking your status. Because there is automated messages that do get sent out to candidates if they do not qualify, as well as you can see where your status is. So your status might be in resume screen with the hiring manager.
Yep.
So it could just be we're waiting on the hiring manager to get back to us about what to do next.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so you talked about you posting jobs on your internal website. Do you guys post on the other websites, LinkedIn, Career Builder, things like that for a candidate to go look at as well?
Yeah, so our jobs get posted across. So a lot of those companies like Career Builder and Indeed and LinkedIn, they scrape different organizations if you have a company page with them. We do post on LinkedIn as well as Indeed, though. Like we can post special postings, so they're more highlighted. But you can definitely find our roles within Oshkosh on those pages as well.
Sure. All right. So, what advice can you give to a student who might have just graduated or been recently, unemployed, about entering the job market?
Yeah, so I would say the big thing is get a LinkedIn profile. Um, get a LinkedIn profile, make sure it's up to date, make sure that you are listing your skill set, make sure that you're listing relative work experience, essentially your resume is what you want your LinkedIn profile to be. And the reason for that is because as someone in talent acquisition, when I'm looking for somebody who has certain skill sets, I'm typing in keywords. And if you don't have those keywords on your profile, you're not going to come up. And so I would just overlook you because I wouldn't even be able to see your page. However, if you do have those keywords, you're going to come up in my criteria list, and then I would review your profile. And maybe you're not a fit for the role that I'm looking for currently, but you could be a fit for the organization and the role and other aspects. So we could always reach out to you for another role at that point. So I definitely think if you are going to be entering the job market, get a LinkedIn profile, make sure it's up to date, make sure your picture is professional, in the sense of it could be a selfie, but just make sure it's not in your car. Like if you're gonna go outside, like get a tree in the background or something like that, and make sure you're dressed appropriately, and that they can clearly see your face. Another thing I would also recommend is on social medias, make your social media private. Unless you want your grandma to see it, essentially, is the best way to think about it. If you're questioning posting it, don't post it. Personally, Oshkosh doesn't go on your social medias and review like your Facebook or your Instagrams or other things like that. But other companies are known to do that and do that. So just keep that in mind when looking at your privacy settings and you're posting certain things, especially with politics or religion or whatever it might be. Another thing to also think about is when you comment on people's posts on LinkedIn, anybody can see them. So if you're replying to somebody's post and you post something obscene or vile or rude, that could also be held against you negatively. Like again, Oshkosh doesn't do that, but other organizations are known to do that.
And those are all great things. And I stress, with my students and with the people I work with is the, keywords. A lot of them don't understand how applicant tracking systems work or how Boolean searches work. And those are big aspects of talent acquisition. And you want to make sure that throughout all of your profiles that you have those keywords. And when you are doing your resume, you're making sure to look at the job description and copy those keywords and try to put those as best as you can on the resume. Right. Because people don't understand it, that you won't come up. We have 200 resumes in the system, and I run a search, and that gets to 200 down to 20. If you're not in that 20, I might not ever go back and look at those other resumes.
Yeah, and there was a study done, I think it was a couple of years back, but how long a recruiter spends on a resume, and that's literally a minute and a half, looking for those keywords. I'm not saying that that's all we do, but that's where you go into resume screen, and then we'll do a deeper dive on your experience, right? So you definitely want to set that first impression with the organization by having a well thought out resume. Make sure you have contact information on there as well. I can't tell you how many times I get a resume that doesn't have an email address or a phone number, or they have a phone number, but their voicemail box hasn't been set up yet. So even if I call, I can't leave a voicemail. So I mean, and those are missed opportunities, because if I try to reach out to you 4 or 5 times, and no response via email, and I can't leave a voicemail, you're going to automatically be dispositioned. Even though we were interested in you, you're just not able to be contacted.
So, in your opinion, what makes a candidate successful?
A candidate successful would definitely be having a strong resume, being able to articulate what you've been able to do, understanding how to interview as well. So I know from our standpoint, behavioral interview questions are huge. So understanding situation, task, action, and result. So, tell me about a time that you had to manage a project and, there was conflicting priorities, like things like that. And so being able to understand what those type of interview questions are, so you're able to come prepared to the interview and you're able to answer. Another thing I would recommend is when you're doing a phone screen with a recruiter, have your resume in front of you. Be prepared, because you could start thinking about things on that resume that maybe aren't listed that you can go ahead and convey to the recruiter, right? There's been times that I do phone screens, and I mean, I'm looking for somebody who is entry level for a designer position, and they have a little bit listed, but not a whole lot. I can tell you, you should definitely put your projects on there, projects that you did in school. We understand as an entry level college grad, that you're not going to have experience, and you may not even have intern experience at that point, right? Things happen. And so if you were to go ahead and put on your own experience from projects and really think about it from what was the project you worked on? What did you do on that project, and who did you work with, and what were you responsible for? Those are the key factors when thinking about doing your resume at all times.
Mhm.
So if you worked at, let's say you worked in an office and you were doing accounting, so you're responsible for managing all of the files, all the accounts payable. You were responsible for answering the phones. You facilitated a weekly meeting. It's those key things that we're looking for. We want to know what you did in the role, not what the company does.
Mhm. Awesome. And I think too is, I mean, with you said a lot of great information about the resume, and I do urge anybody that wants their resumes looked over or wants, to ask questions regarding those keywords or not. You can make an appointment with our Employment Connection Department. One of our employment advisors will help you look at your resume and then try to specifically tailor it to those jobs or industries that you're interested in. So a lot of the same things that she's talking about, that she's looking for from a talent acquisition side, those are things that we can talk about on the front end to help give you the best opportunity. So last question here, Vanessa, and you kind of already talked about a lot of this, but what would you say are your top interview tips?
So remember the parking lot interview. So you never know who you're walking by. You never know who's behind you or in front of you. So when going to your interview, be prepared, and be engaging. So body language is a huge thing as well. Hold the door open for people, even when you're walking into the building. You don't know if that person's on your interview team, or our perception of who that person actually is in the organization. Um, Practice your situational task action results. Have some examples in the back of your mind of like what you can say to different roles that you've been in. Dress professionally. It's better to overdress than underdress. And I mean, I say that like sparingly, right? Because I understand that the market is a little different and there's a little bit more laxity. But as a male, like maybe wear a button up and dress pants, versus like a black tie and suit. It just depends on the interview, and they'll let you know if it's business casual or if it's more casual. Whereas like a woman, like I would veer away from wearing heels during an interview. I mean, it's not comfortable. You're not going to be 100% comfortable unless you are 100% comfortable, and then power to you. And things like that. Keep your phone on mute. Don't have your phone out. Don't fidget. Another thing. Ask for breaks. If you need a break and you need to go to the restroom, go to the restroom. Like ask somebody at the beginning of the interview. Firm handshake, eye contact. Stand up when people come in the room. But I think the biggest thing is just be able to speak to your resume. You have to be able to sell yourself, right? You know your worth and you know what you've done. So be able to speak to that and have examples, prime examples ready. Outside of, the dressing for success and being confident, I think that that's the biggest thing. And really try to build a connection. You're on site for an interview or you're at a virtual interview because we are interested in you. And based on our technical screening, we thought you would be a good fit for our organization. So keep that in mind too. And also think about it as you're interviewing us, right? Is this the organization for you? Is this the place you want to be? So you're interviewing as much as they're interviewing. And I think that's the biggest thing, is keep that in mind as well. Don't be afraid to ask those hard questions. Whether it's about development, if that's something you really care about, ask about that in the front end. When talking about, career path, a career trajectory, or talking about your goals, you could also do that. So I think keeping that in mind is definitely a huge one, and give yourself ample time to get to the interview. So show up and with like 10 minutes early, even if you're sitting in your car, like you just want to make sure you're there. You don't know what traffic holds. So I always plan for 30 minutes early to be on my way to whatever destination I need to be to. You can always stop and get a coffee, or you can sit in your car for a while, prepare. But again, like I said, the company, if they're bringing you on site, they're genuinely interested in you. So interview them just as much as they interview you.
And that's great. I mean, that's great advice. Again, interview them. It's not just they're interviewing you. They're interested already. You're there to make a decision for yourself as well. Is this company right for me? So you need to leave that interview with all of the information that you need to make a decision the same way that the company needs to make that decision as well.
Right.
So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to speak with us and our students and community members. So for the last 4 minutes or so, I would like to open it up for anyone in attendance to ask any questions of me, Vanessa, and we can try to answer those for you. So I'll just open it up. Feel free to turn your mic on, your camera on, and ask that, or you can write the questions in the chat.
No questions?
There's one question from Melanie. Do you see one particular area of Oshkosh growing faster than another?
Um, no, not really. I mean, our advanced engineering group is growing, obviously. So I think the advancement in technology is definitely the next push within any organization.
Great question.
I guess what I could say is the one that's on the uprise is data analytics. And that's from every company that you look at. Every company is looking into more of a data-driven organization standpoint.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of those analyst type roles right now, I mean, you see them, I mean, all over the place. Everywhere has a data analyst, a business analyst.
Data scientists, yep.
Yeah, everywhere has one of those positions. All right. Well, it does not look like we have any other questions. So I would like to again thank you, Vanessa, for taking the time to speak with us. And I would like to thank everybody who's watching this virtually or watching this the recording or watching it virtually with us to thank you for joining us for our virtual Job Seekers Network training this week. We hope to see you next week, and please stay tuned for big changes coming in August. So again, thank you. Thank everyone involved, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye.